All right.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another awesome Geek Vibes Live interview. I'm your host, Tia, and I have a very exciting guest with me today, Alain Uy. Did I get that correct?
You did. That was solid. Solid.
Awesome. Aileen has been in Hulu's Helstrom as Chris Yen. First of all, congratulations on the show hitting the streaming service. How has the reception been since it's premiered?
I don't know. I've been kind of staying away from the internet, so to speak. I check Twitter and Instagram every so often, but I haven't really had much time to get too much. But I feel like people like it. I'm not sure. Certainly, my reps have been shielding me from whatever might be out there that might be negative, so to speak. But I feel like, generally speaking, I feel like people have enjoyed it and have binged it. So that's which is good. Yeah.
I definitely binged it, I want to say, within 2 days because I really wanted to like get through it and get my
Yeah.
review out. And
Right. Right.
when I'm scrolling on Twitter, I see people loving it and a lot of people posting out really positive things. So to me, I
Good.
was happy about seeing that, definitely, because
Yeah.
the thing about Helstrom is, it premiered on Hulu. It's kind of creepy, it's eerie, and there was a little bit of not controversy, certainly not controversy, but it is a Marvel project, but they kind of dropped their logo from Helstrom. So some people were like, where does this kind of fit within everything?
Right.
Do you have any answers for people who are asking that question? Like, is it a Marvel show or should you just kind of watch it as just this demon centered sort of series?
Well, in talking to Paul, the showrunner, and I think he also explains it too in several media outlets that it is it is a Marvel show. Um, you can see in the credits it says Marvel Entertainment. I think Marvel Television is on there, so it is that. And from what they explained to me as far as why it's missing the Marvel branding is because it's really mature. It's certainly something that you would not want to accidentally hit thinking that, oh, it's Marvel. It's probably something that is in line with, Iron Man or something fun like that for some younger viewers. And in addition to that, which is, both things can exist at the same time, right? Which is that it is a Marvel project. Is it part of the MCU per se? Is it pre-snap or is it post-snap? I think in this instance, it is its own, you know, uh, it's in some ways it's siloed in the story structure. It is incubated in this space that isn't quite attached to that. There's certainly references to the Marvel universe, like for the keen eye there. I think in that first episode, you'll see a Roxxon gas station at the end. You'll see that, and there's a bunch of other like Easter eggs that who are hardcore Marvel fans will go, oh, that's cool, or like, all right, the world is connected in that sense. So yeah.
I did see a bunch of people when they were posting up on Twitter say, hey, Roxxon was mentioned. That's a deep tie to Marvel. So kind of little there. But I think Hellstrom, the beauty of it is that it kind of works without having all these really, really deep connections to Marvel, because then it can be its own sort of thing.
Right.
And as I kind of mentioned, it's creepy, it's eerie, perfect for Halloween time.
Right.
How was that for you, acting in a show with all of these demonic undertones?
Well, I'm personally a huge fan of horror films. My favorite one that just came out was Hereditary.
Oh, that was
Man,
great.
it's just, Ari, the director writer, is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of his. I even watched what was the other one that he just came up with? The I'm blacking out, but it's like a cult.
Oh,
Um,
Midsummer?
yeah. Oh my
That
God,
was
that's the
creepy
one.
too.
It's so good.
So good.
I'm into stuff like that, and so to be part of a show like this, and in addition to it being a Marvel project, was just like an icing on the cake for me. I just because I love effects, visual effects. I love how all of that stuff plays, and it was really fun to be a part of a show where I can see the behind the scenes stuff. I can actually talk to the production designer or the art department to see why are they coming up with certain things. What are the reasons behind it? So, you know, for someone who is like that, it was awesome to be a part of. Like, I don't get creeped out. I don't get scared. Like there's a scene there where I'm in a tunnel and I'm eating spiders and rats and stuff. Like, sorry, spoiler alert. Shoot, I
Yeah,
don't know.
sorry, I should have said that. That was my bad. Definitely
Yeah,
spoiler alert.
spoiler alert. But there is sections in there for my character where I had a blast because I got to play in this space where sometimes it's green screen, but in this instance, it wasn't. Like everything, I would say 80 to 85% of the stuff that we did was not green screen, and that it was actually in camera. So the spider stuff, the rat stuff, the hallway, like the the cobwebs, all that stuff was real. And so just to be behind, just to see that all unfold in front of you, it's awesome. You know, it's a lot of fun.
That's really cool. I know exactly the scene that you're talking about. That was a very funny scene because at that point, and now that the audience knows, spoiler alerts here, your character, Chris Yen, goes from kind of, well, at first, I really just thought that he was the best friend of Anna and he is involved in this antique sort of business, but then you find out, of course, later down the line that he helps her dispose of bodies and kills people. But you just think that at first, and then he becomes overtaken by this skull, the keeper. And I like in that scene where he's kind of like, okay, I could do all this other creepy shit, but not eat spiders, which I just think is great. But what did you think of your character having that arc? Were you expecting that at first, or how did you get into that?
I wasn't. The first time I sat down with Paul about the character, which was like 3 weeks or a month before we actually shot, he told me that we're not going to tell you every detail about the story. And part of that was the secrecy of making sure nothing gets leaked. But the other part was really to make sure that they don't accidentally give us an expectation in case the story changes. So I understand as an actor, but I didn't know where the character was going to go. The only thing that he told me was that by the end of the show, your character will be Marvel-esque. And I'm like, oh, does that mean he's got powers? And he's like, I'm not going to say anything more than that. He's going to have one of the more interesting story arcs, character arcs in the story. And in some ways, it is the origin story of who Chris Yen is going to be. And I said, oh, okay, cool. But that was it. That's all they shared with me. And, for the longest time, we would get the scripts a few days before we shot. I'm like, what is the deal with the skull? Am I possessed or what's going on? And the really cool thing about it is that, I thought it was just going to be, I thought the character wasn't going to have his own agency and his free will. I thought it was going to be some like a Renfield type of character. And that's kind of what I started to think the character was going to be. But he wasn't. He had his own agency. It's, what we just talked about in that scene where I will go as far as what I need to do to get the job done. But that stuff, no, I am not going to touch any more spiders or rats. And it's that conversation that's happening, that sort of what is the word I'm calling, like a symbiotic relationship that's happening there. And I thought that was a really cool take on that type of relationship. So I could not have been happier the way it ended for Chris. And I just remember reading the 9th episode going, where the hell is this going? And then reading the 10th episode going, oh my God. All right. That's super cool. That's super, super cool, because then it becomes a launching pad for not only Chris, but also Anna and their relationship and how that has changed now. And I think what was really fun to see was the first time we see Anna and Chris is in this, auction house, like you said. And it's like they're it's a very tight relationship. In fact, there's a in some ways a power struggle that's happening there, like who's really in power. But at the end, Chris is the one telling Anna what to do,
Right.
which I found to be, the opposite of where Chris was, which is I now have my own agency. I need to do a specific thing, and I don't necessarily need you anymore. And I hope you're going to be okay. So I thought that was a really cool way of ending the first season. And now it's like, what's going to happen in season 2? Should we be blessed enough to have one?
I certainly hope so, because there was so much left off in season 1. But yeah,
Right.
I love that Chris didn't kind of fall into the trope of he's possessed, now he doesn't have an identity, he doesn't
Right.
speak or anything. And
Mhm.
I watched the show with my boyfriend. We kind of almost guessed that Chris would die at some point, because we were just like, the way it was going, you thought that
Mhm.
that's what was going to happen. Obviously, it did, and we were happy about that. It was like, thank God.
Me too.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, it was certainly like I think it was the second episode. I'm like, I've done enough shows to know that there's certainly certain characters that would fall into that line. And yeah, I was thinking that, does Chris die here? Chris has to die,
You
right? It makes
almost think that
sense.
that's going to happen. And
Right. Right.
with the show Helstrom, it's clearly about Damon and Anna, but you have
Mm,
characters like you, Caretaker,
right. Right.
and they're also part of the core group. But you mentioned your relationship with Anna. So I always wondered, now that I've watched the show, how did that relationship start where you were helping her kill people? Was there any talk of that, or did you ever
there
kind of think that through?
there was, and there's a specific event that happened that I personally can't uh, share at this moment. But there are, you put the facts that are out there, which is they are in foster care. Um, and in I would, it's hard to say, because foster care, there's usually a perceived idea of what foster care is and what actual foster care is. And the Hollywood version of it is that there's a lot of trauma that happens in foster care, but really there's a lot of good that comes out of it. But in this instance, we're talking about the moments where foster care system isn't really that good.
Right.
So that's how they met. That's how they cultivated their trust with each other. My sister is she's a social worker, but she works in this field, and she's told me when I was doing the research that foster care is good and bad, and the bad parts is what I was really interested in. And she said that usually people that come from trauma who find themselves in foster care, there's a lot of trust issues that occur. And so for these two very broken characters, finding trust within themselves is very telling of what that relationship is. And so if that trust is there, then at some point something, whatever it might have been, could have happened where Anna may have shown her abilities to Chris.
Mhm.
And that, however that could be explored maybe in season 2, would be showing why Chris said, okay, I know that's your power, and I'm okay with it. There's a reason why he's okay with it. So I'll just leave it at that. It's there's a lot of history there. It's alluded to, I think, in episode 7, where uh, she has a bit of a shit fit, is the line, and she wants to cross a specific line, and said that's not what we do.
Mhm.
What we do is curate using antiquities as a reference point. We curate our victims, if you will, or people that we feel are unredeemable people. So I'm responsible for curating that as well. And that is in some ways how the relationship started. And I'm really curious to see how they even found a way to why antiquities? Why this? But I guess I think I know why too. It's she's got a certain power of feeling something and feeling the energy from that object, and I think that would be great for antiquities, because then she could be like, like in Pawn Stars, like show where they go, what is this? Is this real? I don't know if this is real. Well, she
She'll
could just touch
know.
it and be like, no, this is fake, So there you go.
I mean, it's a great, field to be in for someone who has those sort of powers, and it
Right.
affords a pretty nice lifestyle. I think I tweeted that out and you liked it, and I thought that was funny. But the relationship between Chris and Anna is so great. She referenced him as her best friend at some point, which, before then, when you look at her character, she's kind of like cold, a little off-putting, and you really wouldn't expect her to care for someone the way that she does with Chris. And that was just really wonderful to see.
Right.
How was it working with Sydney on the set of Helstrom?
She was horrible. No, I'm kidding. Oh God, Sydney is the best. I didn't know who was going to play Anna, because we didn't do a chemistry read, and I was in Seattle shooting a film, and I had to fly down to LA for the day to test for the show. Typically they do some kind of chemistry read. They test a few people and see what pairs up, but I just didn't get a chance to do that. Maybe because I just didn't have time. I had to, like I said, had to fly back to Seattle to finish the film. But I was really, really interested and curious to see who was going to play Anna. And Paul, the showrunner, when I had that meeting with him, he said that you're going to love Sydney Lemon. She's the one playing Anna. You guys are going to be simpatico. Like, there's just, your vibes are very similar. And I think you guys are going to mesh well on an intellectual level, on a personal level, and in some ways, professional level. There's a link there. He felt. So of course, you can be optimistic about it, but the reality is you just don't know. But the first time we met on right before the table read, and we sat down and we clicked immediately. I was really interested in who she was, and she was really interested in who I was. And we just made it a point to hang out at the beginning, just to kind of create that relationship. But, it was super organic. Like, we didn't really have to force it. So we went out to coffee, had lunch together, obviously worked together in terms of running the lines, but even watched the movies. It was just, it was easy. It was super easy. I felt like maybe in some ways like an older brother to her. And I guess in some ways professionally, not to say that I'm at all established, but, like anything else, we supported each other in the first couple of weeks of this, ride that we were going on. And, she was, really supportive the other way too, that, how could she help? Like, how can I help with your process, and vice versa. So it was a lot of fun, man. It was easy, really, really easy with Sid. She's amazing.
That's so great to hear. You love hearing that with actors, and hearing about their relationship. And speaking about relationships, I did want to ask these sort of questions. So in the show Helstrom, Chris has a boyfriend. And the way that he's introduced is so natural. It's so easy flow there. And it's something that I've noticed, say, with the Marvel movies on the big screen, they really kind of struggle for LGBT representation.
Right.
Whereas at least with the Marvel shows, like on Netflix, you had a few characters that just seemed so easy to portray that sort of relationship. And again, in Helstrom, it was never even really a thing. It was just presented, which is how it should be. How did you feel when you were told that Chris would be in an LGBT relationship, and also the importance of having a normalized same-sex relationship on a show like that?
Representation matters. And, as an actor who is Asian descent, it's something that I've always championed, and I've always wanted. You grow up. I moved here as an immigrant. and it's you've always had a sense of feeling like the other, like you're the other, you're the token Asian guy or whatever it is. And like you were saying, in previous years and previous productions, they would put something out there to sort of signal that, oh, hey, we're diverse. But the thing that I've always found to be troubling or, you know, concerning is that the characters just didn't have the depth. That it was almost like they were just filling a box that says, okay, we've got our African American, we've got a woman, we have, you know, all these things, and that's it. So I personally can't speak on authority of what it feels like to be part of the LGBT community and what that feels like. You know, there's a lot of talk about like, you know, actors playing certain roles, and are they deemed, should they be playing roles? I think it's important to show that kind of representation, and the fact that they wrote it this way and that it was in some ways more matter of fact is a world that I think we all kind of strive for, which is that normalcy. But I will say that it's also important to know that there is still nuance within that community, that it isn't just normal. It's more or less like you have to respect that there is that, you know, people come from different walks of life, and it is different, you know, and it is something that we should respect. And that's the place I came from when I was approached and they told me that the character is part of that community. I was worried, for one, because I was like, well, I'm not part of that community. I don't know how to be respectful and be mindful of this. And so the one thing I thought about was my own experience as an Asian American person is, how would you approach this? How would you respectfully approach this character? And that's what we did. And that's what the writers did too, is that the writing staff was a very diverse group of writers, which I loved. And they spoke from their truth. And you know, a lot of the writers talked to us, and they even talked to me about my own heritage, about like, I asked them, is Christian, what kind of Asian is he, you know, for lack of a better term. And those are the questions I think they really ask themselves, is like, what are we trying to show? And you're right, Marvel has not been, you know, they've been towing the line, and they've been very careful. And so for a show like this to really just put themselves out there and say, hey, not only is the lead character Anna part of the community, but also her surrogate brother, which is Chris, they're part of the community. So I thought that to be really interesting. I thought that to be great. You know, that's really all I could express about the subject matter.
It's like, and this is from someone who is a fan of the Marvel movies, is just, I remember them essentially making such a big deal that there was going to be a gay character in Endgame, right. And it was one of the Russo brothers, and he was in it for 2 seconds talking about how he went on a date with a guy, and
right.
I feel that if I were part of that community, I would want more of representation than just one sentence, you know?
Right. And it's like what I said earlier about, you know, finding representation that doesn't just check the box, but rather really show what the depth of that character. And I mean, it's really about, you know, finding a way to, you know, find the similarities that we all have, you know, the stories that we can share and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you know, but still find a nuance, still find what the complexities can be if you were part of a specific community.
I do have to ask, towards the end of the show, it did allude that Chris was trying to mend things with his boyfriend. Was Chris ever able to fix that relationship, or did he and his boyfriend split at that point?
You know, I got to tell, Derek, the character, is very sweet, because had I been that person on the other end of that, I would have been like, we're done. Like, yeah. You work so hard. I don't even see you. You're married to your work. Like, forget it. I'm out. But
the excuses were kind of sketchy. Like,
yeah, it's like, oh, you got to do. And then, you know, I thought that was a great scene, by the way, where Damon meets Derek for the first time, and there's the assumption of like, oh, who's this guy? Who are
Yeah,
you? I thought that was great. I thought that was a great. When I first read that, I'm like, oh, it's funny. But I think my personal take, and this is not canon in any way, that I do feel as if Chris has realized, for the sake of Derek and for the safety of Derek, that I think he ends it or ended it. That's my take, because of the fact that he is now very aware of who he is and what he is, and it's no longer safe for that person. I mean, if you think back into the core of the character, which is let the innocent people live, and then let's kill the people who are not innocent. Well, Derek is the most innocent person in this situation, and I that's my personal take. And then the other thing too is that we don't necessarily need him anymore if I'm no longer going to be, I think one of the reasons why Chris may have became romantically involved with him is the fact that he has access to criminals. So I think there is that kind of connection there too. Does Chris still need that? I don't know. Well, because he's not long. I don't see him being responsible for that anymore. He's got his own demons to deal with, so to speak.
that is very true, and I would love to get into that right now. So at the end of the season, we see Chris. He is a keeper now, and that end scene, like end credit scene, technically was so good. He's walking with I guess adolescent now Cathara. And they're walking, and I love that she calls him Uncle Chris. It's wonderful. And then then they have that moment where I thought that was definitely Damon and Anna's real father, and he comes and scoops Cathara, who you find out is really Lily, away. And that's just such a great scene. So I wanted to ask, first of all, how is it shooting that scene? And if we, fingers crossed, get a second season, how does that translate into another season?
I think it's the greatest sort of cliffhanger.
It was so good.
It is one of those things where when I was reading it going, okay, so what the hell happens next? It just seems like they're done. And then that last scene, the minute the description was there for Cathara, the little girl, because it didn't say the name, it just said this little girl. Okay. It specifically said purple sweater. And to me, I was like, purple sweater. Okay, why is that a thing? Why is that so specific? Because as an actor, you look at really specific things, and I'm like, why would they call that out? That's rare. And then as you read, and the little girl says, "Oh, Lily," I'm like, "Oh my God, are they gonna go Lilith on this?
That's what I thought.
Is this what they're doing? Is this what they're doing?" And I just put the two together. I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of if you rewatch the show, the show is very dense. You could get easily caught up in the drama of it, the family drama, but there's a lot of mythology that's being explained underneath it all. And so if you watch it back, knowing how this ends and knowing who that was the entire time, you start to go, oh crap, this is a much bigger world. This was just the beginning. And to your point, where is this going to go? Oh, I have a feeling it's going to get really deep into the mythology and the world that I think a lot of the comic books fans are probably hoping for. But yeah, I don't know who the father is, and that's not just me, or who that person was that came in where she said Papa. I don't know in what relation that is. I think it's easiest to assume that it's the father, but Papa could be a bunch of things, just like mother was a bunch of different things. I don't know. I definitely don't know. And but yeah, what a great moment that was, right? That was really cool.
So great. A coworker of mine did a review show on Helstrom, and I was talking about like as soon as she said Lily, I said the same thing. I was like, that has to be Lilith. I was like, that has to be Lilith. I was like, and Papa, I mean, could be Lucifer. Who knows? There was so much. It was such a great ending to a first season, such an amazing season altogether. I certainly hope that we get a season 2 because that was way too good of a cliffhanger for them to end it on.
Right.
But
yeah, I'm excited too. Hopefully,
fingers crossed. But before I let you go, I know everything's been crazy with the pandemic, but besides Helstrom, do you have any projects that are upcoming, any that you've been in, and also hope that you've been safe during this time?
Yeah, I've been safe, staying put, trying to make sure that I'm mentally safe, like just the mental health of everybody. So I think for people who are watching this and if you're feeling, really down about what's been going around and there's a lot of weight on you, please seek help. There's a lot of places you could call for help. And I think it's certainly near and dear to my heart in terms of people's mental health. So but otherwise I've been doing well. I've been, spending time with my family, all the time that I didn't get to spend with them while I was away shooting this thing and shooting a few other things. I basically gone for a year. So it was great to be home and play with my son, watch him grow and be with my wife. So it's been really beautiful in that regard. But I am itching to go back to work. As far as work that's out there now, there is a independent movie that I shot right before I shot Helstrom, and it's an independent film that just got picked up. It's an action comedy kung fu flick. It is it's a lot of fun. It's not a lot of heavy lifting. It's not a lot of heavy thinking, but it's a movie about redemption and what it feels like to get old and still try to do what you think you could do when you were 20. That kind of setup. So yeah. It's called Paper Tigers, I should say.
Paper Tigers, awesome. And who picked it up?
Well Go picked it up, and they're the same distributor who put out like It Man, Train to Busan, sort of these genre type of independent films. So I'm excited for that. That they said that they're going to have a theatrical release for the movie late second quarter of next year, assuming that everything goes
the way it's supposed
to. Yeah. But right now it's making its rounds in the independent circuit. So if you're following me on Instagram or Twitter, like I'm posting that kind of stuff up. So it's regional releases. So if you're like in Boston or New York, we're doing our premiere for Busan in Korea now, which is the international market, and then a few other festivals in and around the United States. So awesome. Hopefully you guys can catch it. Yeah.
I'll definitely have to keep my eye out for it, but it has been amazing speaking to you. Thank you so much for taking time during your very busy schedule to speak with me. And I hope anyone who's watching, listening, all that good stuff, just checks out Helstrom because it's a fantastic show. Thank you again.
Yes. You're very, very welcome. Thanks for reaching out. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Stop recording. Okay.